Hello and welcome to Journal. I'm Steve Kendall. March 24th, Bowling Green State University will present another Native American speaker, and it's in the Round series. And we'll talk a little more in detail about that. It's also in cooperation with One Book BG, part of that as well. And we'll talk about all of that with our guests, Heidi Nees and Jenn, both from Bowling Green State University. And thank you both for being here to talk about In the Round. Heidi, kind of just bring us up to speed. Talk a little about In the Round again for people who may not have been able to attend one of the presentations and what the purpose is, and then we'll start talking about what's coming up in the future.
Thank you. Yes, In the Round is a guest speaker series at BGSU featuring Native American creatives from all over the country, from various different tribal nations, and across the arts. So the arts that are available to study at the university include design, now I'm going to forget. Design, music, theater, film, creative writing, and art. And so we have we've had many wonderful guests at the university thus far over the last 2 years, including playwrights, including historical reenactors. Talon Silverhorn was actually on the show back in October from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. We've also had children's book authors, Kevin Noble Mellard and illustrator Juana Martinez-Neal came last year. We've also had graphic designers, Sadie Redwing. We also had Ryan Redcorn this past September, who is a graphic designer. He's a photographer. He's also a filmmaker. And most people probably will know his work from Reservation Dogs. He's a writer on Reservation Dogs. He's also a co-founder of the Native comedy troupe, the 1491s. And so we've had a wonderful variety in artistic perspectives. And so the artists come to our campus and come to our community and give a campus talk, which is open to all, free to all. Also, they usually meet with students in smaller workshop type settings. And with the children's book authors, we've also been able to partner with the Wood County District Public Library. The authors and illustrators thus far have spoken at the library. And we've also been able to partner with the Mazza Museum out of the University of Findlay. And so those are two wonderful community partnerships that we really treasure and we really value. We've also been able to partner with the Bowling Green City Schools. And so last year and this year we are able to distribute books by the authors who come to visit to children in Bowling Green City School District.
Yeah. Well, and I know that when we interviewed the person who's on Silverhorn, it was interesting because what he wanted to emphasize was not the fact too that there's the culture of the Native Americans, and they didn't want to lose that, but at the same time to remind people that at the same time they are also people who do things that everybody else does. They're computer scientists, they're doctors, they're whatever. And he was real strong about that. And of course, he's working with the state of Ohio on developing the latest state park, which is going to be culturally related to the Native American experience in Ohio in the day before the white people showed up and it became settled. So you get, as you said, you get a wide variety of perspectives and insight into Native American culture, but at the same time, the fact that they see themselves as just being regular Americans like everybody else. And because he said, I know that he was saying, people have this tendency to say, oh, what they remember Indians are Native Americans because they're Indians in the movies from what they've seen in Westerns. And he said, we're not that anymore. But that's the last image that a lot of people have. So it was great insight. And I think the fact that you're bringing this to children really is important too, because then they get that broader perspective early on. And I think that's the advantage of this. Now, I know, Jen, we've got the person that's coming in, Tracy Sorrell, brings a whole array of skills, a lot of children's books, but there's also tied in, as a lot of things are now, being tied in the eclipse, and One Book BG is pushing that as well because there's a lot of science involved that we can educate. So talk a little about the speaker that's going to be coming in here on March 24th.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also want to piggyback on what you just mentioned too, as far as Native Americans and what they're doing today. Illuminative published some research that Native Americans' history is not talked about after 1900. And so that's one of the missions of In the Round, is to bring contemporary, current artists, writers, designers, as Heidi mentioned. And so Tracy, and bringing books to Bowling Green is one of the ways in which we're doing that. So Tracy Sorrell wrote this really great book called Classified. It's the secret career of Mary Golda Ross, Cherokee aerospace engineer. She was the first aerospace engineer, female, hired by Lockheed Martin in the 1950s. And so she was, a lover of math and science. She attributes a lot of her Cherokee ways in the way in how she navigated college and how she navigated her career, and giving back is very, very important to her. And so it's a really wonderful book with really great back matter about Marigold Ross's story and the ways in which Tracy chooses to honor that book. And we were super happy to partner with WBGU PBS to be able to provide books to Bowling Green City Schools 2nd through 5th graders, and certainly contextualizing this aerospace aspect with what's happening with the eclipse that's going on right now.
Sure. And then the other thing too is because we've seen the movie Hidden Figures, and that brought us up the fact that there were a lot of black women who were involved in all of the space activities, which was, as I said, it was a hidden story. This is something from the 50s, predating that by 10, 12 years, and especially for even a woman engineer, let alone a Native American woman engineer, that would have been, I mean, that's like taking care of touching a lot of bases there. And a lot of people would just assume that there weren't any women engineers. And then the story she tells about this particular person is a pretty incredible story. And it's good that because, as you said, history seems to stop if we hit the 20th century. And that was one of the things that was emphasized by the gentleman I had on, that, yeah, that's where our education on Native Americans tends to stop for whatever reason. And this is a way to bring it up to speed and bring it into not just the 20th, but into the 21st century as well. Yeah. When you sit down and talk about who you're going to bring in and who you're going to have in the round series, we got just a moment in this segment. You look for that range of skills, but you also look for people, obviously, as you said, Heidi, that are going to bring creative attention and creative interest to people here at the university and the community. So are you planning next year's already? We'll jump ahead just a little bit.
We are. I will say one of the things that we really think about in terms of the guests that we have a very long list of guests that we would love to host, and one of the things is connecting to that aim of the series, which is to render visible the presence and contributions of Native artists and activists. And so, Jen, do you want to talk a little bit about who we're?
So we're currently working with bringing in Notorious Cree, James Jones, in to speak and dance in September. So he is a hoop dancer, and so we're also trying to bring in, another variety of artistry to the campus. So we're really excited about bringing him in and also having a performance with him. But also getting back to Tracy and sort of that selection, we also have her book, We Are Grateful, that we're able to generously be able to provide to pre-K, kindergarten, and first graders through Dr. Lee Meserve and Marge Meserve. We're able to help us secure books. And so Tracy, when we first started talking about bringing her, we were really excited and thinking about We Are Grateful long ago, and then thinking about the eclipse, thinking about how do we broaden the readership, because last year we brought in Fry Bread and Native American Family Story that was geared toward younger readers. And so looking at Tracy's many books that she's written, this became one that we were really interested for the science connection, but also it was a little bit more of an advanced reader, and so we could hit another group. And we were also interested in her book called Mascot. That is an even older young adult reader book, and talking about to students that are at a high school and wondering why their mascot at their high school is
reflective of maybe not necessarily not looked fondly upon by the entire population. I guess that there is some concern, which is an interesting thing. When we come back, we can talk maybe a little about that, because that still becomes something that's out there that some places have made adjustments, other places are not doing that. So we're talking with Heidi Nees and Jenn Stucker from Bowling Green State University about the university's In the Round series and also the connection with the community through One Book BG. Back in just a moment here on The Journal. Thank you for staying with us, The Journal. Our guest is Heidi Nees and Jenn Stucker from Bowling Green State University. Early on, I referenced the 24th, or the appearance speaker, but this speaker, Tracy Rell, is going to do several things on the 22nd and 23rd, not the 24th. So, Jen, kind of fill us in on what's going to happen over those 2 days with this speaker who's coming to the university and the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tracy's going to join us on Friday, March 22nd. Earlier in the day, she's going to be addressing some students in the creative writing program that are also in the storybook class, and then she'll be doing a podcast with ICS, so their Big Ideas podcast. And then that evening she'll be speaking at 5:30 in 101 Olds Camp. And as Heidi mentioned earlier, the talk is free and open to the public. We'll also have some additional books for sale by Tracy through the Mazza Museum. They're going to be available there to purchase some books. And then the next day at 10 a.m.
The 23rd.
The 23rd at the Wood County District Public Library. Tracy will also be speaking there at 10 in the morning to the Bowling Green community. The first 100 families to come will also have access to their own copy of We Are Classified. And then Tracy's also going to do a book signing after both of those events. So it's a great opportunity for people to come meet with her, connect with her. Many of the children that have already received books can also come at either of those talks and get opportunities to have their book signed by her.
Oh, wow, fantastic, yeah. And again, they get to meet her and see and hear her, the range of things, not just the particular book they might be reading by her. Yeah, yeah.
And if I may, we do have bookmarks around campus and in the community with all of the information about the events. And again, just a reminder, for the first 100 families that come to the Wood County District Public Library event on Saturday the 23rd, they will receive a copy of this book, Classified, which is, again, generously provided by WBGU PBS's educational programming and outreach, and the Ohio Learns 360 grant.
Program.
So,
sure.
yeah.
And one of the things that's nice about this, and we talked about this, the One Book BG folks, is that it's not so much, it's as much the content as the fact that you get people reading. You get kids reading, you get families reading with their kids, and the books are designed to be, as you were talking, Jen, specific age groups. So it isn't like one book and maybe it works well for a 5th grader, but a 2nd grader or a kindergartner might go, I'm not sure what's happening here. So that's the nice thing about it. And I know this year there's an array of science-related books that, again, because of the tie-in with the eclipse, which we're all, keeping our fingers crossed that everything goes okay there. But when you talk about the fact that you're going to get an artist like this, how difficult it is to get artists, because they're obviously in demand, their schedules are crazy, they've got a lot of things, and at the same time they're going to be trying to write or do other creative things. You said the hoop dancer, he's obviously has things going on as well. So when you go out to find somebody, how difficult it is to find a date and a time and the person that you feel will work well with the community and bring something new, because you've covered so many things, obviously. Now trying to find new topics or new perspectives, new views can be probably a little bit of a challenge, I'm guessing.
Well, I would say that because there are 574 federally recognized tribes, there's a
wealth
still
of,
so much.
There's a few out there. Okay.
There's so much we are excited to hopefully 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 invite folks in. Scheduling is difficult. Yes. So we are oftentimes working a year in advance to try to get on people's schedule. There are artists that we've invited that we are still in communication with that we hope will someday come. But there's, just like you said, their schedules are so busy. We also find coordinating with finding space on campus is also a kind of part of the puzzle that is a little difficult to fit everything together. But we've been really lucky so far that we've been able to continue to offer programming every year.
Yeah.
Plus, I'll just add to that, the all the variety of activities that BGSU offers too, trying to think about the calendar and the schedule so that we're not piggybacking on something that's really a signature product of BGSU, that we can squeeze that in. So yeah, a lot of complexities to figure out the right time.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing that's interesting about it too is that as we said, you get people reading and you get people involved and you get people then interested in the content, because here we're talking science. When Mr. Silverhorn was on, we were talking culture and historically getting things so that people came up to speed into the 20th century about Native Americans. And I think that's the value of this, because you can touch those different things that some person may be reached by the science connection of this. One of your other speakers will reach them with the cultural, the artistic, or the creative part. And I think that's the real value of this. I know you go out and look for that. And again, as you said, you try to tie it into events and things that go on campus, so you can supplement, complement, at the same time, bring a new perspective, and at the same time also bring new information forward. Do you ever have people that come to you with, hey, this would be a great idea, here's somebody you should get? I mean, do you get a lot of unsolicited, hey, here, I read this book by this person, this would be a great book for someone in the series, or this artist, something like that? How often do you get that happening?
Several times, and so we add it to a nice Google Doc that we have a list of artists and creatives, and so certainly if people have ideas, we're very receptive. We're also trying to be mindful of how we curate, so the fact that we are continually bringing a variety. So sometimes people will go, oh, you brought in an author, right? So here's another author, here's another author, yeah. And so we want to go, okay, well, we need to bring an artist, we want to bring a musician, and so we're trying to be mindful in that space as well.
I guess the good news is you do have, as I stand corrected, you have probably a plethora of people who want to be on, or ideas of that range of people. But yeah, I get it. You could get caught like, that author was so successful, let's just keep doing authors. And the issue there is then you miss some of these other opportunities. When this first developed, the In the Round series, the idea, as you mentioned earlier, Heidi, was to help educate people and remind people of not just the past of Native Americans, but the current and the future sort of thing. Input from a lot of areas on campus and a lot of places in the community on that, I'm sure, about the idea itself of reminding people that Northwest Ohio was basically Native American land, as the entire U.S. was prior to certain centuries in our history. So do you ever get any sort of negative response to it? I hate to bring that up, but does somebody say, well, why are we talking about this? It's history, let's move on. Any negative feedback ever on this? Not really? Good.
Not really.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that one of the wonderful things is that within this community, people have been really receptive of learning more, right, and hearing stories from Native artists, right, and their experiences. And this started as an extension of the land acknowledgement that was developed at the university to go beyond just statement into practice, and how do we expand the ways that we are learning and engaging.
Yeah, and that's important, as we've talked about too. Back in just a moment with Heidi Nees and Jenn Stucker here on The Journal. Thanks for staying with us on The Journal. Our guests are Heidi Nees and Jenn Stucker from Bowling Green State University's In the Round program. And Heidi, we talked about the fact, book distribution, all of these community activities, but one of the things that also enhances this is you reach out to teachers and provide them with additional and supplemental and more comprehensive material for them to use. So talk a little about that part of the program.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, we distributed copies of We Are Grateful to pre-K through first grade students and teachers in Bowling Green City Schools, and then also classified to second through fifth grade teachers and students. So over 1,400 copies have been distributed, and with the teachers, we also go in and we create a teacher's packet. And so Tracy Sorrell and her team have actually created amazing curriculum guides and teacher resource packets that are all available for free on her website. Okay. So we went ahead and printed out copies of those for the teachers. We also included a letter that we had composed that talked a little bit about the book, about the series, about the events, but also connecting the topics covered in the books to Ohio Department of Education learning standards.
Additional resources. Oh, the standard guidelines, sure.
Yep, and so also creating within that a QR code that would lead teachers to the library guide that's available to everyone through the BGSU library. Colleen Boff of the Curriculum Resource Center has been instrumental in helping us to create those LibGuides, and so within those there's a tab for each artist that has come to campus thus far, and connects to resources and websites and materials created by those artists. And so within those teachers packets, there's also those barcodes, or I'm sorry, those QR codes that lead them to those guides that have been created. Again, those resources are open to everybody, though. Sure. We also throw in some fun swag too, like bookmarks and stickers and pins and buttons and that kind of thing, as well as each teacher that received classified received the WBGU PBS Eclipse Guide, so that could also supplement again and reconnect to what's happening with the eclipse.
And brings it up to a current event that people are tuned to already. Well, and when you were talking about that, I thought, it's interesting because we look at these events sometimes as like in the moment. Tracy Sorrell's going to be here the 22nd, the 23rd, but all of those resources compile and basically build upon themselves so that you're building this larger view, an extended view, not just when one person happens to be here to talk about this, or Silverhorn when he was in to talk about the cultural and the parks and things like that. Those resources build upon themselves and are available year after year after year and build that larger view, that more global view of Native Americans and what they've meant to culture, creativity, not just in the 16, 15, 14, the 1800s and up, but right up to today, that sort of thing. So that's another valuable part. It builds that bigger picture. Yeah.
And if I may, one other resource that we've connected with is OCO, which is the PBS affiliate in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, which Tahlequah, Oklahoma is the capital of Cherokee Nation. Tracy Sorrell, the author, is a citizen of Cherokee Nation. Mary Golda Ross, who Classified is about, was a citizen of Cherokee Nation as well. And so through the OCO website, there are also videos, video resources about Mary Golda Ross. There are interviews with Tracy Sorrell. There are also interviews with Mary Catherine Nagel, who is a lawyer and playwright who was here last fall, fall 22. And so, as you said, these sources compound each other.
And when you go to Tracy's website, that's the first thing you see is OCO at the top of the page. And then you look at her site, all the books, all the materials, all the resources, that sort of thing. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And the books are written for multiple age groups. It's not just, there were some for 4 years, some for 5 and 7, middle school or mid-stage learners, that kind of thing. So it is, but it's interesting because that does connect that all back, you said, to the OSCEO project and that particular thing as well. Jenn, when you look back at some of the creative people who have come in, is there anything ones that resonated with you or you thought resonated really well with the community? They all probably did well to some degree, but was there one or two that maybe stand out as like, oh boy, we just really nailed that one?
They have all been amazing.
Good, all been good.
Mean, they really have, and all so varied in the ways in which they've talked and approached the content that they've been bringing forward. So, my daughter asked me that just the other day. She's like, "Who's been your favorite?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." And I really enjoyed Mary Catherine Nagel, because she contextualized, plays and their influence into our laws, right? And so that was an interesting perspective. And then Ryan Redcorn came and had no prepared speech and just did comments and questions from the audience, and was just super engaging and fascinating and bringing lots of information about his creative process. And so, yeah, it's been amazing to see, who's coming in. We learn something every time. We always want them to come here and be part of the community and the faculty or the staff, because they've been just such a great group of individuals, and there's just so many interesting connections too that sort of happen. So Lee Meserve and Marge Meserve, who sponsored this book, Pat Pruitt, who was here in November of 2022, was a jewelry metalsmith artist. We're both wearing his earrings that he made, but Lee purchased earrings of Pat's for Marge for one of her birthdays, and so she wore those when we distributed books at the schools last week, and so
made the
and told all the children that these were Pat Pruitt's earrings. And so there's just these great connections. It seems like very often that when we bring someone in, just really great things come out of that. So when Mary Catherine came, Hulu had just launched Prey, which was a film that's the prequel to the Predator series. Michaela Goad just connected with other authors that she's been working with now I'm forgetting. Remember.
Yes, she illustrated Joy Harjo's book, children's book, Remember. Joy Harjo was the poet laureate for the United States for several years, and so Michaela has that connection. I think when Pat Pruitt was here, he talked about the use of AI in the arts, and talking, this was before AI really became dominant conversation in the mainstream, and he was telling us about, telling all of the students and faculty and staff about how, you know, we're at the point where you can give commands to AI and they can create the work of art that you are trying to create. And then not 2 months later,
it started to happen.
Exploded on the scene, right?
Yeah, so they got an early notification on that. They were on the point.
And Ryan Redcorn, we screened his film, so that was a new layer to what we offer. Talon Silverhorn met with the 5th graders from BG City Schools and talked with them about historical interpretation, and so
Great.
And then Frank Wallen, who's a musician, actually was part of We Are Grateful's audio recording.
Powwow Day.
Or what was it?
Powwow Day? There's another book by Tracy Sorrell called Powwow Day.
Powwow Day. That was the original book. You're right. Okay.
Frank Wallen actually contributed the music, so he's connected to Tracy. So as Jen's saying, all of these connections have been quite incredible.
Well, and we look forward to hearing, you know, next year's events and season, because it's always every time we do one of these, I always learn something, and hopefully everybody else does by viewing this, but that's what you see, is you learn something every single time one of these folks comes here and leaves that with the community. So it's a great thing. So we appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. So we'll have you back on again next year as you ramp up that next season's events and activities. You can check us out at WBGU.org. You can watch us every Thursday night at 8 p.m. on WBGU PBS. We'll see you again next time. 37 words. Look it up. Thank you for being with us tonight.